never let it go. You just let me invade your space. I'll take the pleasure, take you with the pain. And from the moment I find myself, baby, you know this is for me the
Oh, yeah, great.
How's everybody doing tonight? Great. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for being here. I know there's a million things you guys could have been doing tonight. Just want to thank you for taking the time to be here with us tonight. Whether you're here as a friend or family member coming to support somebody, or a client coming to review the ideas we have shared, or simply help us with the growth of our company, we want to thank you for taking your time. So first, no.
Oops. Everyone close your eyes. I'm on the outside. See? All right. Follow, just use your mind.
Use my mind.
Use your mind instead of the clicker. Use the force.
I'll try next time. We gotta practice.
The one with the force will be on the force.
All right, let's see if this works. If not, we'll just have him dance.
Tap dance.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, well, tonight you're going to hear from several speakers. The first speaker you're going to hear from is Robin Sears. And Robin Sears is going to talk to you guys about a problem that's happening across America right now, a problem that's real. And then the next speaker is going to be Wade Skolsky. He's going to talk to you about a solution to that problem that we feel is not only needed, but vital right now. And then the last speaker is going to be Brett Sears. And Brett Sears is going to tie in the meeting, bring everything together, and talk to you about the opportunities we have in front of us. So please help me welcome Robin Sears.
Hello, everybody. Thank
Hello.
you for being here tonight. I always feel like I'm like walking down the red carpet. I'm famous, right? At least all of you. So, you know, as we said, we know that there are lots of places that you could be tonight, and we really appreciate you spending the time with us tonight. So one of the things that I ask, we always have a million things on our mind, right? Stuff that's going on with school, work, our family. So as long as you've made the commitment to be here tonight, take all that stuff and just put it aside for the time that you're here, so that you can really have an opportunity to listen to what we have to say tonight. Because we really invited you here tonight because a group of us are committed to solving what we think is one of the most important problems happening in our country today. So with that, I want to share a story with you. So my husband started in this business. We're all a little bit familiar with why you're here, right? That there's this Primerica thing that we're talking about. And my husband started in this business 19 years ago. And 19 years ago, he would go into homes in order to help people with their financial security. And at that time, the number one way that we were helping people was with an insurance policy, with life insurance. Because life insurance was a way to make sure that if anything happened to you, your family was protected. And I was reading some statistics today. I'm a lawyer, so I apologize in advance. I love statistics, but I have a civil engineer here, so there's some help in the audience. And in 1960, 72% of families, 72% of families in this country had life insurance. That's a huge amount, right? Almost everyone, lots and lots of people had life insurance. And the reason that they had life insurance was because they were the generation whose parents were part of the Great Depression. And so they knew what it meant to lose something. They knew that it was important to protect their families. And from 1960 to now, only about 40% of families today have life insurance. Something major changed. And it used to be that we walked into a house and they had insurance, but it turned out that they had what we're going to call the bad kind of insurance. And we got to go in and help them with the good kind of insurance. And that was pretty easy, right? If you already know you need something and you've already committed to the bad stuff, it's pretty easy to say that you'll take the good stuff. And that something started to change. I call it the new reality. We started to see that people didn't have any insurance. They didn't have any protection. They didn't have any plans for the future. And we started to say, why is that? What's actually happening in these families? And we would go in and, you know, I said last week we had a 10 a.m. appointment and there was a 4-year-old playing with blocks that I saw. And I was a former teacher and I thought, what is a 4-year-old at 10 a.m. doing at home playing with blocks? And so I asked his mom, you know, why isn't he in school? And she said, well, we have a fantastic preschool down the road, but it's too expensive for us to send him 5 days a week. And we didn't actually qualify for the scholarship that they have because we make too much money. So he's going 2 days a week, and the rest of the time he's at home. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And then we went into another home, and there was a college kid. And I knew that this kid had done really well in school. And in fact, he'd gotten into UCLA, and he was just sitting at home. And I thought, okay, so this is strange. What are you doing at home? You know, and he had a big bowl of cereal, right? Watching the game. And he said, well, you know, I got into UCLA, but I didn't qualify for the grants that they were providing because we had too much money. I didn't qualify for the need, but we didn't actually have enough savings to pay for me to go to UCLA. So it's cool. I'm a College of the Canyons, and hopefully in a couple of years I'll be able to go to UCLA. And we thought, okay, so that's interesting. So people don't have safety nets. Kids aren't going to school where we know that they need to be in order to get the most out of their opportunities. And when it came to retirement, even the folks who thought they had planned, right? They would say, oh yeah, I'm good. I got this retirement thing down. I have a 401k that I've taken care of. I have some money that I've saved. And when we actually looked at the numbers, we would find that folks were significantly off from what they thought they needed in order to retire. And they were finding out a couple years away from retirement. So we stepped back and said, why is this happening? Right? What's changed in the world today? And we took a look at the world. And we said, okay, there are wealthy people at the top. Right? There are lots of us who would be happy to be wealthy, right? Happy to be part of this group. And what does this group have? Well, this group has access to lots of things. This group has access to education. Education is institutionalized at the top. My dad or my mom went to college. My grandpa, or in this case, my grandma went to college. And so of course I'm going to college. It's just a question of which college am I going to? In a lot of cases, that's already decided for me too. You know, now in my family, it was UCLA or USC. Big rivalries, big rivalries. And the question of ownership and opportunity, right? Everyone at the top owns something. Everyone. Now, they may own a trust fund, but not that many own a trust fund. They own a business. They own property. Because that's the only way to get to the top and stay at the top. Financial guidance. Tons, hundreds of thousands of people wake up every day and say, how can I help you because you have money and you can pay me to help you? Right? You're really smart if you figure out how to help someone who has money to pay you. And financial freedom. When we talk about financial freedom in here, what we mean is having the time and the money to do what you want, when you want, with who you want to do it, without having to think for a second. Sue often talks about getting on a plane to Paris tomorrow. It's not a bad gig, right? So when we looked at the top, we said, okay, we know there's a bunch of folks that are up there. And we know that there are a bunch of folks who wake up every day and say, how can I serve the people at the top who have the money to pay me? And so there's institutionalized service at the top. And we said, those guys are taken care of. So what's happening at the bottom? The folks that we call the not so wealthy. And interestingly, when we looked at the folks at the bottom, we realized that there was actually access to a lot of resources down here as well. We as a country, we live in an amazing country, and we as a country and as a society have agreed to take care of the people in our society who have the least amount of money. We know as a group of people that preschool is critical to the future development and the future educational success of kids. And so we actually offer free preschool and college grants and financial support and hundreds of thousands of nonprofits who say, I'm here if you can take advantage of these resources. And the reason that exists is because there are hundreds of thousands of people who wake up every day and say, I want to make a difference. And I'm going to make that difference by helping the people who don't have anything. And so we've got people waking up every day to make a whole bunch of money at the top with institutionalized service, and people waking up every day to make a whole bunch of impact at the bottom with institutionalized support. We thought, wow, there's this big blank space in the middle. What's happening here? Because these were the families that we were going to see. We call them Main Street families. I call them everybody else. And this is a very large group. It's over 70 million families in our country. And it ranges from a single parent who's making $40,000 a year up to a dual income family making $250,000 a year living in Stevenson Ridge. See, both of those families are living paycheck to paycheck. Both of those families are spending all of their money on their car loan, on their mortgage, on the food that they eat, on the clothes that they wear, and on their kids. And both of those families have nothing left at the end of the month. My husband calls these people just a better shade of broke. Right? Are you paying for your Honda or are you paying for your Mercedes? And this is what we started to see in the families that we visited, right? Folks who wanted their kids to go to preschool but couldn't afford to do it. Folks who wanted their kids to go to the best college, but even after they got in, and we know how hard it is to get in, I swear I probably wouldn't get into Berkeley today. And you actually get in and you can't go? Can you imagine what that would feel like? People who want to own. Right? Most of you know I'm a startup lawyer. I work with startup companies. And the only way that a startup company works with me is if they have a minimum investment of $500,000. Heck, to start a McDonald's, you need a minimum investment of $500,000. And not just because the startup costs are so high, but as any business owner knows, it takes 3 to 5 years, and more often 5 years, to make your first dollar of profit. So you've got to have enough money just to cover your expenses. Most companies go out of business not because they didn't have the heart, the spirit, or the capability, but because they just didn't have enough money to get through that time period. And then financial advice. The truth of the matter is, we all need the advice. We all need a plan. You know, folks in here often hear me say, having no plan is a really bad plan. But unless you have a minimum of $250,000, the typical financial planner is not talking to you. And so we took a look at what was happening in the middle. And we realized there are lots of people taking care of folks at the top. And there are lots of people taking care of folks down here. And in the middle, folks are alone. They're making compromises for their life, and they're making compromises for their family to do the very best they can. And what we've actually created is institutionalized struggle. And the reason we have institutionalized struggle is because we're working so hard that we've got to make it okay. We accept where we are because most of the time our parents accepted where they were and our grandparents accepted where they were. And so how could we know any different? And when we looked at what was happening here versus up there, we said the real difference, the real issue as to why it's this way is because there's a difference in access. Folks in the middle, the Main Street families, don't have access to the tools and resources that the wealthy have access to. And the truth is that we're stuck. And the hardest part is that in most cases, we don't even know that we're stuck. Because we live in a world that has agreed to take care of the folks down here. We live in a world that has agreed that we pay the taxes to cover the services that are provided here, and we buy the goods and services to keep those guys in business. And so what does that mean? Why doesn't this change? And it doesn't change because no one's interested in changing it for those reasons. The institutions that were developed by our government and by our nation to help take care of us, the banks, the lenders, life insurance companies, corporate America, do any of us really believe that these are the folks who are here to get us out of these problems? Do the banks really want to get us out of being able to save money? Do the lenders really want to get us out of debt? I listened to a great recording the other day. One of my favorites to listen to. His name's Jim Rohn. One of the things that Jim was talking about is how crazy is it when we call a person a liar that we then get upset that they lie? Like, well, I can't believe that liar lied. Who can't believe what? Well, I just can't believe that the lender wants to not get me out of debt. Why would the person who wants to lend you money want you to not take money from them to make money off of you? Well, I just can't believe that the savings and loan doesn't want me to save more money. Right? We've named these institutions after what they're not going to do for us. And yet we get upset when they act exactly the way that we've told them to. So we can't turn to those folks. So now we've got a really big problem, right? You're like, you listen to the access gap, right? You listen to how there's folks at the top and folks at the bottom and no one there for you in the middle. And you think, yeah, that's a kind of a big problem. And then you hear about how we're actually stuck there institutionally. And you think, oh yeah, that's an even bigger problem. And then you look at this and you think, and no one is here to come fix it? Now we're in serious trouble. And because we're in such trouble, and because we don't know where to turn to, we accept what is. When I went into that house with that preschooler, and I looked at the mom and said, I cannot believe this is happening. She said, it's okay. At least he's there 2 days a week. When I talked to that college kid, because I know how important it is in college, the relationships that you're building and the education that you're getting and the classes that you're in. And he said, it's okay. In a couple of years, we'll take care of it. And I talked to a family about retirement. They think, well, we're good for now. We're doing the best that we can. And there's no doubt that we're doing the best that we can with the information that we have. And so we can get really mad about this problem. And that's what I used to do. And on occasion still do. Because it really is a travesty. It's completely unacceptable. And in a lot of ways, it's heartbreaking when you sit back and think about it. When we focus on that, we only focus on the problem. And the group in here is committed to a solution to this problem. So I've got a question for you. If things could be different, what kind of impact could that have? If a kid can graduate from college with zero debt, how many more risks can that kid take in his life? How many businesses can he start? Because he's not worrying about paying something off. If you know that your mom is set for retirement and that you're not going to have to also cover her, how many more risks can you take? How much more peace of mind does your mom have? And if we can teach that to our kids, like you've done, and if they can teach it to their kids, what kind of generational change can we actually create? That's what tonight's about. Tonight's about recognizing that we have a really serious problem in our community. And we have an opportunity to think about what part can we play in that solution? Because since no one's coming, it's only up to us. So you're here tonight because we know this has to be a grassroots movement. And every single person has an opportunity to participate in that movement in their own way. We knew we couldn't do it alone. And so we had to turn to the people in our lives, and we had to create a place for everyone and a role for all of us. There are some folks in here who've heard this story and said, what can I do right now? I want to be part of the solution 100%. There are folks in this room who've heard this story and said, I really support what you're doing. I'm on a path. And if I know a family that you can help, if I know someone who can take advantage of what's happening here and really participate in the solution, I'm absolutely going to introduce you to them. And there are folks who are here who are long-term friends who've said, I'm open to hearing what you're doing because I want to be able to support you. And if I understand it a little bit better, I can give you a little bit better support. See, we knew it was important that if every person in this room just knew enough to tell one other person this story, we have the potential to make change, generational change, change in our community that will be lasting and that will create a fire across the nation. Tonight is about understanding the problem and not only focusing on the problem. Tonight is about becoming curious about the solution. Tonight is about becoming inspired about what is a part that you can play that makes sense in making the difference in your life, in your parents' life, in your kids' life, in our community, and in our great nation. So with that, I'm going to bring up the great Wade Skulski to talk about the beginning part of this solution. Thank you.
So it's funny because it almost can be overwhelming, right? That Robin talks about this big macro problem that we have, which is the access gap. That the system is set up in a way that there's this whole group of 70 million families in the middle that aren't getting what they need. Okay, they're not having the tools or the resources. And that's a giant problem. What my job is to do is bring it to a personal level, and I'll tell you why. I have a story that, I don't know if Brett's ever even heard the story, anybody's ever heard the story, because I just remembered it actually. I'm a lawyer as well, but my parents basically said, the reason I'm a lawyer is not because my parents were a lawyer, it was because they, in their head, neither of them went to college, and they said, in order for you to be rich, you have to be a doctor or a lawyer. Okay, that's a strategy that some people in this middle group of people in the Main Street families that they say go be a doctor or be a lawyer, right? And so I know nothing about math and science, so it was going to be, they should have just said just go be a lawyer, right? So fast forward now, I've gone to law school, I graduate, I've got a job in Phoenix, and I'm at a Halloween party, and I'm one of the three amigos, okay? And I'm about to, I don't remember which one I was, but I had a sombrero or whatever like that, and I was talking to a guy, and he was telling me how excited he was about his mutual fund, right? About his retirement account. And I was like, this doesn't sound exciting at all. Why are we talking about this? He's like, no, my dad taught me that if I put money for retirement, I'll have this much money when I retire. And he gave a number, and I don't remember the number, but what I remember is just the I'm going to use a word I can't pronounce. I was incredulous. I was like, that's impossible, right? And so it's so impossible. It's like, the reason why it's impossible is because my parents never told me about this, so it must be fake, right? Robin identified a problem, and the problem that she identified is not just that the people in the Main Street families have access or don't have access to the tools and education. When she says that they're stuck, we are stuck in such a way that we can't hear anything, right? That even if someone tells us what the answer is and say, look, if you just save some money from the time that you're young, I think we came up with the number $137 every month from the time that you're 18, you'll be hitting at close to $1 million at the time of retirement. But if we're stuck, and you're at a party, at a Halloween party, and you're like, that's impossible, I'm set, I'm gonna be a lawyer, you just go on with your life. I was 25 years old, I'm 43 years old. What do you think that if I would have listened to that guy at 25, how my life would be different today? But I couldn't because I was stuck, because I was part of this middle group of people, all right? So the entire team that we have around us, one of our main primary goals is, Robin talks about this big giant problem, but we try to make it personal. We try to create a situation where people can hear us to understand. It's like, look, if you just have the right information, you'll make good decisions. I'm about to be a father. My wife and I are expecting, right? So what that means is if you just give me the right information, I will make the best decision that I can for my family, but we have to have the right information. So how can we make people hear us? Well, the first thing we talk about is, why don't we start thinking about our money the way that wealthy and owners think of our money, okay? Because, like, look, obviously, if there's a group of people that's doing really, really well, don't we want to model what they're doing? We don't want to vilify what they're doing. We don't want to say, if you own I own my own business, right? So the reason why I own my own business is because I see that business owners become wealthy. You have to own something. Robin is correct. I always use this stat, and I'll move on basically, but if there's this big thought process in America that you have to be either an athlete or an entertainer to be wealthy. But if you add up all the people in Hollywood, you add up all the athletes, you add up all the entertainers, they still make up less than 1% of all millionaires in the United States. Your average millionaire is 63 years old. Your average millionaire drives a Ford. I'm not going to say a truck, I drive a Ford truck, but the average one drives a Ford. Why? Because most people become millionaires over a long period of time, working hard, saving their money with the right principles. So why don't we emulate them? The first thing they do is they lock in advances for their family. What this means basically is that they ensure that whatever they do, if something happens to them, their family will be okay. Meaning if they use a trust fund, meaning if they use life insurance, meaning whatever they're going to do, they make sure that whatever business they build or whatever they own, that's going to transfer over to their kids if something happens to them. The second thing they do is they develop habits. They realize that you have to do things over a longer period of time. Anyone that tells you that you can get rich quickly is trying to either sell you a lottery ticket or sell you something else, all right? Building wealth takes time. And don't let anyone tell you that it doesn't, because look, the only way that it gets done is with habits, and the right habits over a long period of time. They also leverage experts. They don't do their own taxes, okay? If they don't know something, they hire someone to do it for them that already knows how to do it. They make sure that they don't spend their time learning things they don't need to know when they can hire someone to do it, all right? And the fourth thing they do is they cultivate strategic partnerships. This is a fancy way of saying that they find people who think the same way that they do and are pointed in the same direction, and they work together, all right? Anything worthwhile, anything that takes accomplishment takes a team. If you own a business, you have people working for you, right? That's a team. Those are strategic partnerships. You go into business with those people. These four things are not magic. They're not complicated. You don't have to compose a song that you have to get 10 million people to like, right? You don't have to get 15 million YouTube visits, okay, to get this done. These are things that anyone can do. It's their skills that can be developed into talents. So let's talk about the power of partnership. Why Primerica, all right? Everybody has an option of who they're going to work with in life, right? So Primerica is one of our strategic partners, and the reason why that we've chosen them as a strategic partner is because they're the only company that's servicing Main Street families. Robin talked about it. In order for Merrill Lynch, advisor at Merrill Lynch to talk to you, you've got to have $250,000 liquid. They don't even pay you if your accounts aren't more than $250,000. So if I worked at Merrill Lynch and I wanted to help my brother, I would have to help him for free because Merrill Lynch wouldn't pay me on his accounts because he's not rich enough, right? Primerica builds the services for the Main Street families that they need. They understand that, yes, these people don't have a ton of money, but if you teach them habits over a long period of time, guess what? Eventually they do. They understand that if you teach a large group of people the right habits and save over time, which we're going to talk about in a second, that there is actually a lot of money in this group. It's just you have to get them to hear what you have to say. You have to get them unstuck. Primerica's been in business since 1977, has $3 billion in market capitalization. What it also doesn't say in our securities business, in their managed accounts business, they have over $2 billion under management in only 3 years. And that's all from this middle group of people. People are like, there's no money here, there's no money here. Primerica's gathered $2 billion in the last 3 years, only pretty much from this middle group of people because no one is talking to them. Now, so what does this mean for this middle group of people that we're talking about, mainstream families, all right? Well, the first thing we do is, if we're going to emulate the wealthy, how can we do it if I can't get somebody at Merrill Lynch to talk to me, right? That's a great way. It's like Steve Martin has a joke. Some of you may not know. Do you know who Steve Martin is? Yes. Oh my God, it's a miracle, right? All right. So some of you may not know who Steve Martin is, but he has this joke. And his joke is, how to turn $1 million into $10 million. Step one, have $1 million, right? That doesn't help you if you don't have $1 million, okay? So how do we access tools of the wealthy if we don't have that much income? Well, that's what Primerica comes in. Number one is that they lock in advances for a family with level term insurance. My father had a business eventually. He was a farmer and then he became a construction worker. And the entire time that he was working, he never had life insurance. What that means is that if he would have got struck by a bus, gored by javelina, struck by lightning, and killed, his family would have to start over. So his sons would not have gone to college. We would have gone into construction. And so there's nothing wrong with construction, but I never would have become an owner because I wouldn't have had the support system to even get the time to become an owner. The second thing that we have is to develop habits. Those are simply mutual funds. Look, if you save we figured it out last week, $137 from the time you're 18 every single month at 9%, which the market has historically done, if it does what it's done in the last 100 years, you'll have $998,000, and you'll be scratching that at $1 million. Okay. Now, if we miss by half, let's say that everything goes wrong, that nothing goes like it did in the past, you'll still have $500,000 for $137 a month. Okay. People just need to understand that this right here is me at the Halloween party. I got a beer in my hand, I got a giant sombrero on my head, and someone's telling me if you just save some money every month that you make until you retire, you'll be okay. But I'm like, nope, I got it. I'm a lawyer, man. My parents said, go be a lawyer, I'll be rich. I'm just waiting for my wealth to roll in. And you've got to develop the habits over a long period of time. The third thing you got to do is leverage experts. Well, that's manage accounts. Look, as we get going, as we start to get more money, at some point, we're going to have enough that we can put it in a managed account. This is where we have people watching our money for us every single day. Because look, do you know what's happening in China right now? Do you know how that could impact your money that you have saved? Do you really want to take time out of your day tomorrow to figure out China? And that's just China. I was waiting for an answer. I thought maybe you did. I was like, oh, that sounds like fun, right? So the reason is like, look, our managed accounts are we have active wealth management with what I like to call the smartest nerds in the world are in my basement, and all they do is look at about what the markets are doing all over the world. Now, look, you do have to have $25,000 to have access to one of these, but here's where the power of Primerica comes in. Most managed accounts, we're going to get technical here for 30 seconds, and don't fall asleep on me. This is important. Most managed accounts, you need to have $250,000 liquid to get into them. To have the same level of wealth management, 250 grand, right? Primerica, basically, because it can leverage its number of securities representatives that stuttered right there. I got so excited. Caffeine. Primerica, because it can leverage its many security representatives, can have an account for $25,000. So do you think how long, it wouldn't take very long if we started to develop the habits of mutual funds, right, for somebody, that eventually they're going to have $25,000. And when they do, we can start to get them into managed accounts. And this is the most important one, though. These three right here are personal in the ways that basically it's how you manage yourself, okay? You just got to make sure that you cover, take care of what you got to take care of, you got your habits going, and that you use other people instead of trying to learn to change the oil in your own car, right? Don't do that. Have somebody else put the oil in your car unless you love cars. This is cultivate strategic partnerships. This is how we manage our relationships with each other, right? I get excitable up here. I talk really fast because I'm like, I got to get it out, I got to get it out, I got to get it out. And the reason is because all of these things together can change your life. And cultivating strategic partners are two things. One is Primerica, which we've already talked about, but two, it's our advocates. I started talking to you guys about our number one priority in life right now for our business is creating a business where people can hear us. So that when I go talk to somebody at a Halloween party that's wearing a sombrero and I tell them, look, just do this little thing once a month for the rest of your life and your life will change, they will hear me. But the only way that they hear me is if they're one of my advocates or one of my advocates with credibility is talking to them, right? This guy, what he told me was true, but he wasn't telling it to me in a way that I could hear him. I was stuck. Our entire business model revolves around so that when we get that guy waved with a sombrero, he's like, oh, really? Maybe I should follow you up with this. And he'll keep drinking his beer, and the next day he'll be like, yes, I want to talk to you about what we talked about at the party last night. That's the power of strategic partnerships. That's why our advocate system is so critical, is because we're losing people. If Primerica wouldn't have come into my life, I would have been devastated at retirement because I thought I had a plan, and the plan was, I'll just be a lawyer. Trust me, I sit with lawyers all the time, and I look at their finances and their retirement plans, and they've got the sombrero drinking a Halloween plan too. All right? So we laugh, and it's funny because it's a funny picture, but it wouldn't be very funny for me when I'm 65 or 70 years old and I'm like, how am I going to eat, right? And so it's good that we can laugh about me because it's personal, and yes, we know that I'm like, oh, I have the information, right? So I'll put a sombrero on, we can laugh at it, but let's not laugh at if it's our brother or our sister or our cousin or our father or our mother or someone that we know that a 10-minute conversation can change their life. Because the only reason that my lawyer plan isn't now in effect and I'm not going to be devastated is because of as Primerica and my advocates, my team. So this is a 2 to 3 generation game plan. What that means basically is that my daughter that's unborn, that's about to be born in April, is going to have a college savings plan in place before she's born. When she's eligible, the first dollar that's going to go in for her is for retirement. I'm going to talk to her over and over and over and over again. So she's the one at the Halloween party telling someone, hey, my dad taught me this. Then if she teaches it to her kids 2 generations from now, that's financial wealth. Now, you can't save enough money. I'm going to steal one from Brett. You can't save enough money to become financially free just by working at a job or just by doing what you do. You just can't. You don't make enough money. But you can, even if you do that with 2 to 3 generations with these principles, 2 generations, 3 generations financial wealth for your family. And that's exciting. Isn't that incredible? Think about that. With just the right principles. So I get excited about this. I've stunned you all into silence, I know. So you're just thinking about, well, what happened at the end of the Halloween party? The sombrero came off, and I was very hungover the next day. But, so this is 2, 3 generations. But Brett's going to talk to you. He's going to come up and he's going to talk to you about, well, what if we want to do something a little bit faster? Doing and teaching what I just talked to you guys, to everybody that we know. So, the awesome Brett Sears.
How you guys doing? It's funny, I'm sitting there, have you guys realized that when it gets dark earlier, something changes for a little while? Like, am I the only one that takes a little bit of time to get used to the fact all of a sudden it's like it's 5 o'clock and it's dark out? And like,
Yeah.
wait, is there something wrong? Because like over the last couple weeks, like we got energy and I'm walking, I'm like, people look outside, it's dark, and all of a sudden it's like I gotta take a nap. So, but yeah, I'm excited. Thank you guys for being here. There's a bunch of stuff that we're gonna go through, and I never want to lose sight of the impact, right? Because right, and sometimes we sit in a room like this and we think about like these big grandiose pictures, like, oh my God, there's this huge problem, and we bless you. Any of you like see big problems and you're like, man, we gotta fix big problems? How many of you get overwhelmed with big problems though, and then you start focusing on little problems? Any of you little problem people? Any of you little problem people, you start solving little problems and then you get tired and you get halfway through the little problem and then you get distracted because there's another little problem, and then you go to a little problem over here and then a little problem over here, and then you look back and you're exhausted and you've half done 4 little problems? I'm the only one that does this. Am I sharing a little bit too much? All right, well, tonight, the reality is that one of our dilemmas is we have big pictures and little pictures, but we're talking to people in this room that for 5 years or 10 years or 20 years or 30 years or 40 years have been taught to think about life, their money, their resources a very particular way. And a meeting like this in an hour might not change it, but what we can do is change our direction, right? See, no one's gonna walk out of this meeting rich. Somebody like, you mean there's not a sticker on it? No. Everyone's like, this not. But see, what we can do is we can walk out of an event like this and say, man, our life can be different. I've been here 19 years. I walked into a room like this. I was 22 years old with $24,000 of credit card debt. The only thing I knew about money is I didn't have it. And I sat through it. I saw a presentation, and there was something inside me that sparked. And I went, you know what? These are good people that are trying to do something different. Because of that night, my life has never been the same again. Because of that night, lots of people's lives have never been the same again. Right? Not always for the good, right? No. And so, but I've also, over the last 19 years, we've had lots of people come to a meeting like this and talk about it, and their lives are never the same. Now, not all of them change it dramatically. Some of them change it like piece by piece, but over a long period of time, things can be fundamentally different. See, I've heard Wade's story before, and the thing about Wade that I think is incredible and important is, see, that person that told him to that when he was 25 was the first step in his ability to see that there might be something else that was going on. He didn't change it. He didn't call that guy the next day and say, I know I need to totally change my life. But a seed was planted at 25 that there might be something going on in the world that he doesn't know about. So when someone else presented it to him, he went, oh my gosh, I've heard this before. You see, for some people, tonight might be the first seed. Or some of you might be Jack and the Beanstalk, right? It might be the thing that grows. And so wow, y'all are serious. So really what I'm going to talk about is entrepreneurship. Right? I'm going to talk about the ability to build something. It's one of my favorite topics, right? For a variety of reasons, right? For the idea of being able to build something for you and your family. Right? See, that got me really, really excited, right? There are some people that are good employees, and I am not one of them. As a kid, right, I had my first job at 15, and I figured out who I need, because if you ever, had known that person that you tell them what to do and where to go, and they tell you where to go and what you should, how exactly. Yeah, I'm not really good at being bossed around. Not even that, right? So, but I also love working. I love it. Right? Rob and I were talking the other day, and she's like, someone walks up and goes, Brett, what's your hobby? And I go, my hobby is building things. My entire life, I loved building things. I can talk, right? Wade and I went and spent some time the other day. I'm like, so we won't spend so much time talking shop. And he's like, no, we ended up spending a couple hours. All we did was talk about building and growing, because this is on my hobby. Now, it's not the only thing. We got amazing kids and amazing lifestyles, but the ability to build something for our family is an important component in our life. The ability to start where you stand and create what you need. This is one of my favorite parts of the idea of this being this entrepreneur. Right? I was watching a show and they were talking about, it's messy and crazy, and the guy looked at him and said, well, this is what it looks like when you're starting something new. When you're starting something new, what do? You can't wait till it's perfect, right or wrong. But you get to start where you stand and go, hey, I get to be different tomorrow. Now I got a question, this is since we've been quoting my friend Jim Rohn tonight. Right? How many of you believe you are smarter than a tree? Raise your hand if you believe you're smarter than a tree. This isn't a trick question, right? This is pretty simple. It doesn't get a lot simpler than, right? When are you smarter than a tree, right? Now, I have a question. Most of us, if we interviewed 1 million people and said, are you smarter than a tree? Look, and they're going to say yes. Have you ever seen a tree grow half as high as possible? Have you ever seen a tree send its roots half as deep as possible? Produce half the fruit possible? Have you ever seen a tree grow half of what it could be? Have you ever seen a person? See, it got really quiet. That was like a good quiet right there. That wasn't like I'm bored. That was like, oh shit, you got me. Right? Why? Because see, sometimes we don't even know what we don't know. And when we have the ability to start where we stand and do something special, we get to start the moment we choose starting. The ability to be in charge of how big and how much and what do you want to create. Right? See, the greatest thing is we all know people. We know people in our lives that have huge goals. And we have people in our lives that have different goals. And it's not about being anybody else. It's about how do you start where you stand and build what's important to you. Now, as a kid, that's hard, right? We got a 13-year-old and 11-year-old. I love my 11-year-old, and he's fantastic. But you always can tell, we're big sports fans, but you can always tell who's Ty's favorite team is, right? All you have to do is watch the game, and about third quarter, go, who's winning? And whoever's winning is Ty's favorite team. It just doesn't matter. He's figured out a long time ago, if I'm always on the winning side, life is more fun. It sucks when your team loses, right or wrong. Right? Some of you are sports fans. You're frustrated and bitter, right or wrong. Then we got this fantasy football thing, and that screws it all up, right? You're miserable for days, right? It's all, right? But see, the reality is, right, we're not in charge of that stuff, but it allows us to say, man, we can do whatever we want. And see, one of the reasons I love the idea of entrepreneurs is the ability for us to start where we stand, to be able to be in control of our life and to build it the way we want to do it. And if we can harness that, something special can happen. Because Wade talked about this 2 to 3 generation plan in America. It's fantastic. It's real. If you save and invest and have a plan, your entire financial life will be different. If you save a little bit of money over a long period of time, you will have more money than if you don't. Now, that sounds so stupid. Of course, if you save a little bit of money over a long period of time, you'll have more money than if you don't. Duh. Did any of you need to come to a meeting to have somebody say, you should save money for your future? No, you all knew that before you showed up, right or wrong. But how many of you knew that last month and something just got in the way? And the month before and something got in the way. And the month before and something got in the way. Because one of these days I'll get started. But then 6 months goes by, or a year goes by, or 5 years goes by, or 10 years go by. And the intentions are there, but the applications are. You see, that 2 to 3 generation plan is fantastic. But for us in this group to ever get truly free, it's only going to come down to ownership. Now, tonight's about our allies and advocates and our associates, right? Tonight's about getting this message to people. I always want to make sure. It doesn't say that the only way to get financially free in America is to build a Primerica business. It says the only way to get free in this country in 1 generation is ownership. The question becomes, what are you going to own? And so I think that's a fair question to explore. If we're going to stand in front of a room and say, we're passionate about closing this gap, we're passionate about changing the world, we're passionate about arming the people with the resources and tools that are necessary to make a fundamental change, yes, we have to have the tools and resources economically, but we better have an opportunity for ownership or we really can't do it. And see, I don't want to work for the next 50 or 60 years knowing my grandkids are going to be free, but I'm not. We sat back and said, okay, wait a second. Everyone's needs and dreams are different. Everyone in this room has different needs and different dreams. I got a question. What would an extra $500 to $1,000 a month do for you? For your needs or dreams? Would it make a difference? Now, I've talked to some people and they're like, look, an extra $500 would make every change possible. And there's other folks that are like, yeah, I mean, I take it, but that's not going to change my life. Now, I have a question. How many of you, right, it's jacket time, right? You guys start getting jackets on in the last couple of weeks, right? You put on the jackets. Any of you put your hand in a pocket and find $20?
I'll buy today.
Stop at 20, right? At that moment, doesn't it seem like God intervened? Like the heavens opened up, like, right? It's like, oh my God, I totally needed this. This was unbelievable. Right or wrong? You don't feel that way when you lost it though. Like 6 months ago, you're like, where'd that $20 go? It was sitting in the pocket. We get excited. Ever walk down the street and find $100? You think it's the greatest day in the history of the world. Over $100. See, the reality is for a lot of us, an extra $500 or $1,000 can be a systematic change in our life. What would an extra $2,500 or $5,000 do? If you kept doing everything you're doing, but you made an extra $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month, would that make a fundamental change in your life? What would you do with it? Would you save a little bit of money? Would you get out of debt? Would you go to Disneyland? Would you have some fun? Would you travel? Are there types of things you could start thinking about? What if you can make an extra $10,000 to $20,000 a month? Would that make a difference in your life?
Mm-hmm.
And who knows? What if the good thing about PowerPoint is you can put any number on here, right? Because I started the 500,000, I'm like, well, shoot, if we're going to have that, we might as well have that. Why not? What would you do with it? We want to have some fun tonight? We got the internet. Go home, write on a pad of paper, $50,000 a month, and start spending it. Pay some taxes, so take $10,000 out for taxes, maybe 12. Right? I got 38, and just start spending it. And you'll realize, well, how much is the house that I want? Pacific Palisades. $2 million? What's the mortgage? Are you kidding? Holy crap, I don't make enough money. You have an imaginary 50 grand, and you're like, I don't make enough money. Y'all are excited about that. I'm telling you, your whole life changes when you start to realize, but it allows us to start making different dreams. Right? We have a little thing in our room in the theme that says, you can't hit a target you haven't aimed for. And every once in a while, people are like, right, you always talk about money, talk about money. Look, here's what I know. In my life, there have been several points in my life where I've had none. You want to know when I thought about and talked about and was consumed with money? When I didn't have enough. When I walked into a restaurant and I had to determine what I was going to eat based on how much money was in my pocket. That's when I thought about money all the time. If you got $50 in your pocket and you go to Taco Bell, you're not worried about how much the chalupa is. You're like, give me 6, right? It doesn't matter because you have an abundance. When you have an abundance, you don't worry about it. You get to create your mind in other things. And so we said, look, what if there was an opportunity on this somewhere here for you to let abundance to take over your life? What kind of change would that make? And so that's really what this is. See, because Robin started talking about be curious. Be curious about what those experiences could be. Because someone's got them. And be inspired. Because if someone can, why not you? See, the reason we go through this slide in the next couple minutes is we want everybody in our life, even the most important supporters in our life, to be clear as to why we're doing what we're doing. Yes, we want to make an impact in other people's lives. Yes, we believe we can change the world. Yes, we believe that what we're doing is right. And we want to change ours. We said, man, why can't we change the world starting with our own? Both of those pieces function together. See, we are a business incubator designed on purpose to create and sustain high-level entrepreneurs. That's what we do. Is we said, let's find people that have that ambition, that desire, that focus to do something. They said, man, if I made an extra $500 a month, that would create a little bit of freedom. If I made a couple $1,000s a month, that would give me direction. If I made an extra $10,000 a month, I could have some freedom. And if I could make 50 grand a month, I could literally create wealth. It said, wherever you are in that picture, whatever that need and that dream is for you, if we had the ability to teach the tools of what it takes to be successful, we could help people accomplish it. See, a one-generation plan, right? The keys to building ownership is we had to be able to harness that entrepreneurial spirit. I know a lot of amazing people that have this desire to be an owner, but they don't have the skills, the resources, or the capital. How many of you have ever been at your job? Maybe not you, maybe you know. But you know someone that's been at their job that has a boss that's a complete moron. That you're like, oh my God, if this person can do this, anyone can. Am I the only one that's ever had that experience? Right? You're like, oh my God. See, there's a spirit there that says, I want to do something. But without $500,000 of capital, you can't leave your job. I got a $13 13-year-old, 11-year-old, and 8-month-old twins. This could be the greatest opportunity in the world. If we're making enough money to pay our bills, we can't leave our job to go do. That's irresponsible. So he said, man, we could have the spirit without the resources. It doesn't matter. So we need a leverageable support system. Why? Because I can't be all things to all people. I don't have $500,000 in cash to be able to go do something else. And I don't know. I'm not good at administration. Right? You guys know people that, how many of you have known someone that's written something down, 11 seconds later, they can't find the piece of paper they wrote it on? If you haven't met them, come meet me. I don't know why, right? It just happens, right? For the longest time, I have this, right? I'm not a good courier. They know, don't give me things. There's a good chance it's not going to make it, right? It's just one of those, it's just one of those things, right? Well, that's okay, but at the same time, that stuff still needs to get done. See, for a long time, I hid behind that. It's like, oh, I'm not a good courier. That's a reason for it not to get done. No. You not being good at something isn't a reason for it not to be done effectively. It just means you might not have to be the one that does it effectively. If you could leverage the support system, it can be done, and you don't have to do it. And then at the end of the day, for us to really do this for this group of people, we have to have a transitional plan. Right? What does that mean? What if you kept your job? What if your job paid you to learn how to be an entrepreneur? What if your job kept paying you what you're paying and you learned how to make an extra $500 and $1,000 and $3,000 and $6,000 a month and you kept your job? Could you learn how to be an entrepreneur if your job said, we'll take care of your bills? In 6 months, a year, 2 years from now, you develop the skills and the resources, you'd have a shot to do something special. That's what happened to me. Because I was part-time with this company for 5 months. I was making $1,000 a month. I'm like, hey, I can't quit my job, but I can learn, and I can practice, and I can change, I can get better. And then I got to a place where I realized, man, I have the skills that can allow me to create the income that I need, and I could start to bet on it. And so that's really what we did is they said, look, for us to do that, there's a couple things that we need, though. One, low capital entry. What does that mean? I was $24,000 of credit card debt. Did I have $50,000 waiting around to join and start a business? No. If I had to sign a lease and open an office and get phones and a secretary and a plant and all this other stuff, it's never going to happen. We said, man, for the cost of a license, that's not even true. For a tenth of the cost of a license, Primerica says we'll cover the bulk of the costs. $124 covers the FBI background check. We don't get paid a dime to do that. We say, look, we're not going to have money be the reason that you don't have opportunities to the greatest part-time opportunity in the world. We needed a partnership platform. It is truly the reason we can do what we do. Because Primerica's got 2,000 people in Atlanta, Georgia that love financial services. Love it. Love it. Dream about it. They dream in pie charts and standard deviations and all this other like algorithms. They're like, woohoo! I've met them. They're like, this is awesome. I'm like, you're nuts. See, I don't dream in pie charts. But I love having a partnership with people who do. Because I want to make sure that if we sit with someone, we put their kids to college, they have the single best professional level expertise possible. I just don't have to be that expert. It allows us to make an impact and reach the people as necessary. We got an unbelievable back office support system that allows us to grow nationwide and have consistent high-level client support and associate development that can be done so that the clients can have an incredible experience. But we might not be the ones that are always good at it. I might drop a piece of paper. But if we know that there's a support system in place, clients are still taken care of. So we get to get good at reaching the people in our lives and saying, we should be smarter than a tree. Let's start being more. Maybe a little more, maybe a bit more, whatever it is. And then at the end of the day, guys, it's got to be worth it. We've got the greatest impact in the world. If it economically doesn't make sense, you shouldn't do it. That's fair, isn't it? So we sat back and said, okay, we have a philosophy. We want there to be a place for everyone and a role for all of us. We build our business with our allies, the people in our lives that understand and support what we're doing. Our advocates, the people that are part of our grassroots. There are people in this room that maybe there's someone that's like, oh my gosh, my cousin Billy needs to hear this. You understand the only way cousin Billy's going to learn about what's possible is if you introduce him. The only person that could have gotten you here tonight is the person that got you here today. Could you imagine if there was a cool commercial on TV, like some animated thing that said, hey, here's a shot, come on down to a meeting and you can learn about it. Would you have watched? Would you have gotten in the car and driven? No. But the person that talked to you said, we want you to hear this information. We don't know where that fits. but there's a place for our allies, our advocates, and our associates. See, we said, look, one of the things that we've got to do is there's a big problem in this country. And one of them is we don't make enough money. Can we just call that what it is? The way the systems we were talking earlier today, and I can go off on this, right? But they're raising the minimum wage, right? And it's going to affect restaurants and all this other stuff, and no one knows what's going to happen, because the problem is when you raise minimum wage, when you do that, now all of a sudden it's not just for the servers, but it's the dishwashers and it's people driving the trucks and driving the products and all this other stuff. And so like, oh my gosh, it's going to cost all this stuff, and all these small businesses, and everyone's like, it's okay. And we're like, well, no, I don't know if it is. And it doesn't really matter because it's coming. But see, the challenge is every once in a while when people try to do good, they end up hurting people. And I don't know, I'm not taking no shit, is it good or it's bad? But here's the article I just read. What they said is, you know what, so Joe's Crab Shack and the Shake Shack, two businesses that are growing, have decided to do something. What they've decided to do is pay their employees $15 an hour, which they said it's going to cost our food costs more, so we're going to have to charge more to our clients. So here's what we're instituting: a no-tip policy. So when you go to Joe's Crab Shack, they say, we are going to provide excellent service for you, and you don't have to pay us to provide excellent service. It is a culture of our restaurant. Our servers don't want to tip. We are strongly discouraging tipping. Well, why? Well, because if you go to Joe's Crab Shack right now and it's $32, what do? You drop $8, right or wrong. So now your bill was $40. Y'all with me? The server got paid $9 an hour plus the $8, right, tipped out, and all of a sudden then it makes some money. Joe's Crab Shack says, no problem. We'll pay you $15 an hour. What we're going to do is we're going to take your meal from $32 to $40, but not have you pay a tip. What do you care? You paid $40 either way, right or wrong. And they're like, look, employee, you don't need to worry about it, because you guys understand that people's incomes aren't going to grow. Our average incomes today is the same as it was 10 or 15 years ago. Is gas a little bit more expensive?
Yeah.
How about lunch? You guys remember when lunch was $5, now it's 10? Pretty soon it's going to be 20. What happens to our income? See, the reason why we did this is we said, man, we got to solve some problems. And one of them is most of us have an economic issue. We said, look, we have a position. We call it our GAP, our Gathering Asset Partners. Why? Because it fires me up. There are 10,000 people turning 65 years old every day for the next 19 years. Think about how many, 60, that's a lot of people. They're the first generation that's ever had access to a 401k or an IRA. Ever. That means these people are getting to retire with hundreds of thousands of dollars on a piece of paper, and their parents have pensions. They have no idea who to talk to. No idea where to get the information. We said, look, if we could deliver access to that, have someone spare time, just get licensed and introduce, just meet some people in their lives that need help. If we help them with that managed accounts, not only are we going to change their lives, but we can have our GAP, our part-timer, make $4,000 or $5,000 a year part-time. The $5 million in assets would pay a part-timer $1,800 a month. Is $1,800 going to change your life? I don't know. I asked you before. What would an extra $500 to $1,000 do? You understand that the average Social Security check is $1,269? You ask someone who's making $1,269 on Social Security what an extra $1,800 would do, it might change their situation. Guys, the opportunity to reach the people that need to be reached by providing access to the information that's necessary. We said if we could align our goals, we could do something special. We got a place for our part-time players. Folks that say, man, I love my job. We have a handful of folks, they're teachers and they're doctors. We got firemen that says, man, I love what I do. I just don't make enough money. We said, well, look, if you could help a family lock in their advances and develop the habits of savings, you could make $200 to $900 every time you did it. If you help 2 or 3 families a month get on a road to change their financial life, and you made an extra $500 to $1,000 to $2,000 a month while you did it, you could continue to teach and make your economic life a little bit easier. We could align our goals. Plus, build your assets like you got and make more money. We got some folks that are like, yeah, seriously, you know that whole love my job thing? I'm not one of them. I have to be at my job. It pays me, but it'd be really nice to own my own deal. How do I do that? We said, look, why don't we let your job provide you the opportunity to learn how to build a business? Why don't you make a couple $1,000? $5, $4, $6, $8, $10,000 a month part-time. Keep your job and let it pay you. And understand that your job's to grow assets and licenses and skills, and assets and associates and assets. It's about never starting over again. So what if over the next 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, you cultivate skills and resources? What could you do? And then we've got a place for our owners. There are some people that are like, look, I'm an entrepreneur. I want to build. Yes, I love the idea of making $500 a month. I love the idea of having a place for 10, maybe making a couple $1,000s a month. Well, what if I wanted to get free in one generation? Well, the great thing about ownership is there's 3 components. There's revenue, our ability to control our income monthly. There's our passive income, the ability to get paid our money and earn on income we created before, and profit, the ability to leverage revenue and passive income in ultra other locations. Right? It's a business one, it's just how it works. Well, we said, look, in our business, passive income, you grow assets under management, $15 million personal is $8,300 a month in passive income. If you build a team, it's not going to wait. He's sitting with a family. They're going to help a family with about $1 million, a couple $1 million over the next couple months. Takes about a couple hours to be able to do this. Right? You build 30 people to do that. It's an extra $8,300 a month in passive income. And these are access to tools that no one's going to deliver to this group of people. You build a business that helps 30 families a month. There's 20 of us in a room. You think between 20 of us in a room, if 70 million families are stuck, we might be able to help 1.5 families a day change their financial direction if we're passionate about what we're doing? We're not talking about life-altering experiences and giving it, but that pays you 150 to 200 grand. And then my favorite, you teach someone how to do what you did. See, I raised entrepreneurs. My wife and I, we run it. This is what our passion is. Everything we talk about is how do we grow entrepreneurs? You build an RVP that helps 15 families a month do this. Half. They'll make $8,000 or $9,000 a month, and the company pays a $6,200 bonus. That's $72,000 a year in profit. I'm not the greatest at math. I'm like, but if I did that one, that's 72, 144, 210, 280. That's $350,000. If over the next 5 to 7 years, we found a handful of people that wanted to change their situation, where there's 70 million families that are stuck, and a bunch of them wanted to make $500 a month and make their life a little bit easier, they start helping some of these families. See, because these 15 families a month aren't birds and personal. If that's the RVP that's got 8 or 9 or 10 or 20 part-timers that are helping 1 or 2 families a month. It's about building a team that's reaching people that need it. That's 200 grand in passive income, 200,000 in revenue, and 350 in profit. That's $750,000 a year. How many think if you made $750,000 a year, you might have a shot at getting free? Write it on a piece of paper, spend it, save it, figure it out. Be curious. What's possible? See, when I sat in a room like this, right, 15, 18, 19 years ago, I didn't know that this was possible, and I didn't know if what they were saying was true, but I sure as hell wanted it to be. And I sat down and said, I'm going to ask questions. I want you to understand. I want to know why this is real. There's nothing tonight that the person that brought you or Robin and I or the leaders, the speakers can't say, here's why we do what we do. Because this isn't about hype. This isn't about smoke and mirrors. This isn't about convincing you that something's good and then it doesn't. This is about creating an army of folks to say we recognize there's a problem and together we can actually solve it. See, whether it's as allies, it's advocates, or it's as associates, there's a place for everyone and a role for all of us. We have an opportunity to make a difference. We have an opportunity to start to change the world, starting with our own. To know that we're taken care of, because then we get to be a model to the people in our lives. We get to be a model to our community. And when someone says how you did it, how'd you do it? It's not, oh, I don't know, I figured it out. It's, oh, someone taught me something. This isn't about being the smartest person in the room. It's about having access to the best information possible and reaching the people who need it. Because what if you didn't come? What if Wade wasn't in the bar? Wade didn't have that conversation and no one ever talked to him? He could have had that experience, but without an opportunity to make it real. It's just a story. So guys, we have a shot to do something different, to make an impact on what's going on. So we're back here next Wednesday night. And we have this conversation because, guys, we got to grow. See, every once in a while, I always end with this, right? It goes through because there's 20 of us in the room, and are the 20 of us going to change the world? 20 of us can't change 70 million, right? Can we just, like, no one else here? Like, we say it's just not going to happen, right? But 20 of us could grow to 40, right? 40 of us will not change the world, right? Like, woo, the 40 of us conquering the world. Like, it's not going to happen. Like, we've all seen 300. They died. Right? The 300 is a great story, but the 300 is not going to change the world. But 340 could grow to 50 to 100, right? At some point, and then 100 could grow to 300. Now the 300 aren't going to change the world, but the 300 could grow to 1,000. And if we were passionate, deliberate, and understood what was going on, we raised some leaders and taught people how to be entrepreneurs, 1,000 could grow to 5,000. Now the 5,000 is not going to change 70 million, we know that. But the 5 grand could turn to 20,000. What rate you want at 20,000? Why not? Are the bank's insurance companies going to change it? Are jobs going to pay us more money? Do the government really want to get us free? You understand that no one's coming? But what if the 20,000 became 50,000, became 100,000, became 3 million? I don't know. At some point, we find the leaders, we find the people, we make an impact where enough people can talk and enough people are forced to listen. We won't make change. It starts with the 20 of us. Doesn't stay with the 20 of us. But man, if we got passionate about this, we can do it. It's not a bad way to spend a life. It's not a bad way to change the world if we could change it. How about making $250,000? How about making an extra $500? How about making an extra $10,000? How about making whatever number is important to you and change your family's world along the way? That's what tonight's about. So I want to thank you so much for coming. If you're here for the first time, thank you so much for being here. Please get all your questions answered, right? Please hang out. The leaders are here to talk, right? We got training back here on Saturday. If you're interested, if you have any questions, we'll spend some time with you. We'll get together with the person that brought you and get your information taken care of. So guys, thank you so much and have a great night.
It's 9.